So I'll share some thoughts with you about, somebody suggested I talk a little bit about happiness and suffering. And I like to use, you can't hear. Oh, how about this? I like to use current events, what's happening in the world, as a way to illustrate the truth of what the Buddha said. And so one thing I've been thinking about, and I don't know how much any of you are following what's happening in the US, but a few days ago, a CEO of a healthcare insurance company, very big company, billions of dollars, and he himself was quite rich, being the CEO. He was murdered in downtown Manhattan. And
Whenever you bring nearer.
I always say, you should really put chocolate on the microphone because you want me to hold it right there. Yeah. Why don't people move closer? That might help. No, people come in the room. Mhm.
Oh yeah, that's good.
Yeah. Yeah. I hear. Oh, my, can you hear? Yeah. Okay. So this man, quite a wealthy, well-educated man who was the CEO of a major insurance company, was murdered on the street in Manhattan. And uh, it, the reaction of in social media has been very diverse. And some of the people are saying, oh, he ran this big company and he got so rich because he and his company denied people's requests for treatment. So I don't know how the healthcare system is here, but in the US, if you have health insurance before you can have a costly procedure, your insurance company has to approve it. And if your insurance company doesn't, then you have to pay yourself, and many families go into debt. Yeah, and then some people can't even get the health care they need because they can't afford it. So some people, when this guy was killed, were saying, well, he kind of deserved it because, he got very rich by his company denying the claims of average Americans who, as a result of their insurance claims being denied, they themselves died because they didn't get the procedures, the surgery, the checkups that they needed. So some people were saying that. Other people were saying, oh, that's not a very nice thing to say about somebody who died, you know. So I just wanted to share some thoughts about that. I agree that to rejoice at somebody else's death is not good. Yeah, no matter whether you like that person or don't like the person, to rejoice in somebody else's suffering, what does that make us? Yeah, if we are glad somebody else suffers. So we have to be careful about that because it's very easy when we don't like people or they did something where they didn't treat us fairly. It's very easy to dislike them and say, oh, yeah, they have something bad happen to them. But when we think like that, what kind of person does it make us? Not a very kind and compassionate person. Okay, so that's one side. As for what many of the average citizens were saying, because they know people who died because they couldn't have the health care they needed. And that's why this company was so wealthy and why the CEO was so wealthy. So I'm hoping, that by them bringing these things up, that it may cause some discussion in the U.S. about corporations and the relationship between big corporations and the average citizen. Because as it's happening, again, I don't know what's happening in Singapore, but in the US, as they say, the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. And when you have an attitude that's just concerned about me and my family, what's good for us, I want to earn a lot of money, I want to be seen as successful, I want my kids to, have the best. And everything's focused around the self. And then we do things that harm other people, and that's what this is bringing out, how the healthcare insurance is harming the average people so that the wealthy people can get more. And what when the Dalai Lama speaks, he says, if you really want to take care of yourself, the best way to do that is to take care of others. Now, that sounds like it doesn't make sense because our self centered mind says if you want to take care of yourself, get everything you can, and it doesn't matter what you do to anybody else. You've got to get it. It's for yourself and your family, and you deserve it. But actually, if we have that kind of self centered attitude, then we're going to live in a society where other people are dying because they don't have health care, are living in poverty, yeah, and people who are not treated fairly and yet see the wealthy people getting richer and richer and living in their gated communities and all, then the poor people develop resentment. And then you wind up, even if you're well off, you live in a society of people who are not and who are very unhappy. And who wants to live with unhappy people? Yeah, think about it. If we don't treat other people fairly and they're unhappy, they don't sit there and say, oh, yeah, it's okay. I'm poor. My kids don't have a good education. It's okay. They don't say that. They get angry. Yeah, just as we would get angry if we're treated unfairly. So my point is, when we just think about ourselves alone or our own family at the expense of other people and don't care about all the average people in our community and in our country, then we wind up suffering because we live with unhappy people. Yeah. And so you know, what I find quite interesting that since this guy was killed, now all the CEOs, they want personal security so that nobody else will kill them. But I'm thinking if they listen to the concerns of the average people, and if they approved more of these healthcare procedures so that people didn't die because they were poor, then people would be happy, and there wouldn't be all this kind of unkind remarks about them. Yeah. So I find it interesting, they want now to have their own little security, but they get, people who follow them around, make sure nobody else harms them. But if they treated other people better, they wouldn't need security because everybody would like them and appreciate them. Nobody would want to harm them. Yeah. So I find it so interesting how we are often we do what I call shoot ourselves in the foot. Yeah, we want to be happy, but we do things that bring about more unhappiness to ourselves because we do things that don't treat other people well. So they're unhappy, which makes us live in a society where we have to live with people who don't think well of us. Okay. So to me, this whole situation that's happening now, it makes me really think about the power of compassion and how important compassion is. And, love and compassion. In Buddhism, love is the wish for living beings to have happiness and its causes, and compassion is the wish for living beings to be free of misery and suffering and its causes. And so, if we cultivate this, not just for our family, not just for our friends, but for everybody, yeah, then we would live in a much better world. You know, if you're following the international news, like I said, I think that I follow the news because it teaches me many of the things the Buddha talks about. So you may know that in Syria, the rebels just took over the Syrian government. Assad, who was a very authoritarian, quite mean and cruel leader, he fled, and now the society is really in turmoil. They don't know who's in power, and there's looting and stuff like that. So it's the same thing here. Why did rebels arise who wanted to get rid of Assad, the president? Well, because he wasn't treating people well. He was taking advantage of them. He used chemical weapons on his own people, his own citizens, and, imprisoned people who had different opinions. And so, of course, the people in the country don't like him, and they're very happy that he now ran away to Russia. But so it's the same kind of thing. If he had listened to what and cared about what the average citizens were saying and really wanted them to be happy and and have a secure life with enough food and clothing and shelter and medical care, and if he had cared about them and given them freedom instead of clamping down on everything, then the citizens would have loved him. The rebels would not have been able to take over the government. And now he's in Russia somewhere, and they're ransacking his very wealthy house. So all of this stuff that he got by being the ruler and not being so kind, now the other people are, stealing it and trashing it in his house. So it's showing the same kind of thing, that if we don't care about others, if we don't help others, then we're going to live in a turbulent family, in a turbulent society, in a turbulent world. Whereas, if we really care about the happiness of others, and we aren't always insisting, well, I've got to have the best, and I want this, and they can't have it, and I want to be powerful, and all this stuff to glorify oneself, that if we don't live like that, but we share and we, give things to others and we care about the people we live with, then we're happy inside of ourselves, we're peaceful inside, and we live with people who are happy too, which makes our own life better. Okay, so those are two things that are happening in the world that are written about in the newspaper. And they really illustrate the truth of the Buddhist teachings. So I talked a little bit. What I want to know is what you people want me to talk about. And if you have some questions, then please ask.
Oh, but everyone can hear, right? I can have the right.
Yeah, I'll repeat it too.
Yeah, so you mentioned about the insurance, like, but
Yeah.
I think to begin with, I think the cost have to be affordable, yeah. So I think
Mm-hmm.
the first instance that you mentioned is when someone is sick and nobody should be denied from seeking
Yeah.
treatment, right? Yeah, then I
Mm-hmm.
think no, because recent years there were some changes to the Singapore the policy as well. You know, there's changes. I mean, I don't know whether you are aware, but there's a lot of changes in the insurance policy, and there's a cap and all that. You know, there's a lot of things happening.
Yeah.
Um, so we don't know. I think priority is we don't want to deny anyone from seeking treatment, right? But yet at the same time, you need resources to run medical care, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, um, but I think at the same time, I think the healthcare in the situation, everyone is very stretched for time. Like there's very little time, very little people, but you have to do a lot of things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then I guess at the end of the day is how do you balance all, right? You
Mm-hmm.
know, and also I think in whatever industry, be it school system or healthcare system,
Mm-hmm.
everywhere, any industry that you do, you need people to care for another person, but with limited resources and a lot of factors in consideration, then it's always challenging, I would say.
Yeah.
So yeah. So what I'm hearing, I mean, like my takeaway, my own reflection is also like you do have to care for the people who is providing the service,
Mm-hmm.
in order so that they could actually pay for
Yeah.
it and care for the person.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a thing of everybody needs to be cared for. But when you look in this particular situation, the people in the healthcare insurance ability, they get everything they want, plus a lot of money, and everything's going up. Whereas they're taking an advantage of other people. Yeah. And so it's that lack of care that is really harming, I think, the whole industry. Yeah. Um, and it's true. I mean, everybody lives a very stressful life right now. And here, I think also something is a little bit, could be improved in our attitude and in the general attitude of society, because the emphasis of society now is money. Money is the bottom line for everything. So people want money. And actually, it's very interesting. What is money? Yeah. Money used to be on the gold standard. Remember many years ago? So, it was gold. There was something you could touch. Then we went off the gold standard. So money is just paper. But you had paper you could touch. You pulled it out and paid for things. Now there isn't even paper. Yeah. Most people's paychecks get put into their account. They don't touch anything. It's just the numbers on their screen change. And then you buy things again with your phone, and the numbers in your account change again. So, what is money? Yeah, when you really ask yourself, what is it? It's basically just a bunch of numbers on a cell phone screen. When you really think, isn't it? That's all it boils down to. So, why are we so fixated that having certain numbers on our cell phone screen means that we're successful, and having other numbers on our screen means, oh, I'm not successful? What does it mean to be successful? Is it just having money? Yeah, because there's many people who are successful, but they aren't very happy. Mhm. And that the money and societal success, it doesn't protect us from aging, sickness, and death. That's something all of us go through, but we don't prepare for that. Yeah. And that's what's interesting about, we think aging, sickness, and death. it makes us ask, well, what's really meaningful in my life? Yeah. Okay, so I have such numbers on my cell phone screen, and that means I can say, oh, I'm successful, I'm wealthy. But does that mean that you're happy? Hmm? Yeah, you're getting what I mean? It doesn't, maybe it means you're not starving, so that's okay. But it doesn't mean that you are at peace with yourself and your own mind. It doesn't mean that you've treated other people kindly and so you feel good about your own actions. And at the end of the day, what is more important in our life? When we die, I haven't heard of anybody who says on their deathbed, because you hear about people expressing their regrets when they're dying. I haven't heard of anybody when they're dying saying, oh, I should have made more money. Yeah, I don't think at the end of the day anybody would regret that they didn't make more money. What is it people regret? Well, they regret when they've treated other people unfairly, when they've been unkind, when they've been angry and spoken really harshly to the very people they love the most. That's what people regret, you know, or people regret when there's opportunities to be kind that they didn't take those opportunities. Yeah. So, we have to really think, well, at the end of the day, how are we going to feel about how we live our life? And to think about that now and make adjustments to how we live and how we think and our emotions and so on, so that we have a feeling of fulfillment about how we've lived and we feel good about ourselves, because that's what's really important. Don't you think? Yeah.
Venerable,
Mm-hmm.
I lower the volume first. I got something to maybe you can share with us. Lately, there is a movie from Hong Kong, and it's about funeral ritual. So I think most of us here are already in the autumn, so I think maybe
We are
and
young.
in the past, like life and death, especially death, people don't want to talk about it, don't want to hear about it, don't want to mention about it. But this movie, when it was filmed, it created an uproar in the Hong Kong, and Singapore now is also showing, and it hit the record in the chart. It's never sell so well. So over the 6 days, it break the record. So this movie is about funeral ritual. It's about the meaning of life. And there are many people who, for example, there's one case, there's one lady, the son died very young, and he doesn't want to cremate the body. He want to keep back hold on to the body because she cannot let go. And there are a lot of things about life and death. For example, we shouldn't cry. Our tears shouldn't touch the dead, because if we were to have tears in front of the dead, we believe that the dead will not live peacefully. So maybe on this death thing, maybe you can share a bit about us about this. Because I think we always tell ourselves we must be prepared. The day will come, just don't know when. The day you will born, your every day you live is shorter and shorter. It's not longer and longer you live. So maybe you can share a bit with us this. Thank you.
So about our attitude towards death and how to prepare for death. Okay, I think what I've just been talking about restraining ourselves from harmful actions and doing positive actions towards others, I think that's the best way to prepare for death. Yeah, because then we feel good about ourselves. We've created virtuous karma. We don't have regrets at the time of death. Whereas when we're very self-centered, then we do things that harm others, and then we have regret at the time of death. So many people contact me and they say, oh, my, so and so, my relative just died. How can I benefit them? And or they say, please do prayers for them. Well, yes, I do prayers, and that's good for somebody. But if you really care about your relatives, the best way to benefit them after they die is to encourage them to do wholesome, virtuous actions while they're alive. Yeah, because it's not like, oh, well, we act anyway, and then at the moment before we die, we say, oh, Buddha, save me, Amitabha, take me to the Pure Land, and woof, there you go. No, it's not like that, because we're creatures of habit. The way we live is very much the way we die. Yeah. And so if we can die with a heart that has compassion, a heart that's peaceful, a heart that feels satisfied with our own behavior and with our life, then the death can be very peaceful. Well, if, the best way to help yourself and your family is to encourage people to act in that kind of virtuous way. So it sounds easy when you hear it, but it's hard sometimes in a family. Maybe one person wants to be generous and make a donation, let's say for a healthcare clinic or for an education program in another country, and they want to make a donation towards that, and then other family members say, "No, why don't donate towards that? You're giving the family's money away. Let's use that money and we all go on a vacation." Okay, so that kind of thing happens. But when we act in that way, when somebody else wants to do something virtuous, we're stopping them from creating virtue. Whereas if they want to make a donation and that we can afford it, we say, oh, very good, you're helping other people. I really rejoice. I'm so happy that we can afford to give things to people who don't have what we have. And then your family member, who wants to give the donation is creating virtue. So really the best way to benefit your relatives is while they're living, not, after they're dead, they've left this body, they're gone. Yeah. And prayers are helping them. But the best way is, if you have a relative who is getting involved in doing a kind of under the table business deal that's not so fair and kind of illegal, but boy, it brings in a lot of money. If you have a family member that's thinking of doing that, tell them don't do that. Yeah, it's not fair to other people, and in the end, you're very likely to lose the money yourself or get arrested or whatever. So that's the best way, really, on a day-to-day basis, to ourselves act in a way so that we have self-respect. Yeah, because self-respect is so much more important than what other people think about us. We're also thinking, oh, what do people think? Do you think I'm good? Do you think I'm successful? Oh, I heard you criticize me. We're so sensitive. Yeah, I just this last weekend in teaching a course, my goodness, people were like, oh, at my office, they're having a Christmas party, but I don't want to go. But oh, I feel pressured. What are they going to think about me if I don't go? And this person was so upset about that, going round and around. And I said, is this the worst problem in the universe today? Yeah. Is it? Do you think other people are going to spend all their time wondering why you didn't go to the party? they're going to go and they're going to have a good time. And they may notice that you aren't there, and they may not notice, but who cares? Yeah. Better don't care so much about that kind of thing. Yeah. Because people can praise us, but that doesn't make us good. People can blame us, but that doesn't make us bad. Yeah. And if we just rely on what other people think about us for our own self-confidence, then we're in real trouble. Okay. And I'll give you a personal example about that. So many years ago, I lived in a monastery in France. And one day, one person came to me, another nun came to me and said, "You know, you're a really good example of a nun who keeps her precepts well, who encourages other people, who studies. Thank you so much for being a good example of a good practitioner." Okay. So, people think I'm wonderful. Ooh, that must mean I'm good. Well, a half an hour later, another nun came and said to me, you do not keep your precepts very well. You're extremely lazy. You don't get along well with other people. You're a horrible example of a nun. So if we listen to what other people say about us and think that everything they say is true, then in this example, am I wonderful or am I terrible? Because two different people are saying two different things about me. Yeah. And probably I'm neither. I have some good qualities and I have some faults, like everybody else. So there's no reason to be puffed up and thinking I'm so great. And there's no reason to lose my confidence and think that I'm a failure. Yeah. So, because we're the ones who have to live with ourselves. And if we don't treat others well, we don't feel good about ourselves, no matter how much money we have, no matter how much other people praise us. It really comes down to, our own self-respect, our own integrity. Mhm. Yeah. So this is what we have to be aware of. In terms of, burning the body, burying the body, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. When somebody dies, yeah, the consciousness leaves that body and it's a body. Yeah. What is a corpse? It's a corpse. What is a corpse? It's a bunch of atoms and molecules. Yeah. Biological uh, atoms and molecules. The corpse is not the person. Yeah, we are not our body. And so what happens to the body, it doesn't matter. What's important is during our life, what we do with our mind. That's what's important. One of my friends, many years ago, her mother died. And I went to the funeral, and people were saying, because she died of Hodgkin's lymphoma. And she looked terrible while she was alive. Anyway, at the funeral, some people walked by the casket and, they embalmed the body. So it looks so nice. It doesn't even look like you're dead. They make you up and it looks like you're just sleeping there in a box. Who would sleep in a box? Uh, and people were saying, "Oh, I haven't seen her look so good before." Well, like, what? She's getting praised for her looks when it's just a body there. Yeah. So when it comes time to die, the Buddha was saying, that our body is like a guest house. It's like a hotel. You live in it for a while and then you leave and move out. So at the time of death, you know, when it's time to leave, then good if we just leave peacefully, rejoicing in our life, dedicating our merit that we created during our life, and don't worry about all the rest of the stuff. Mhm. Yeah. And then you mentioned about having the family there, and if people are crying, then they can't leave. Well, you know, it really depends very much on the situation. But personally speaking, when I die, I don't want a bunch of people around holding my hand, grasping at me, saying, "Don't die. We love you so much. We need you. We love you. Don't die. Stay here. Sniff, sniff." Oh my goodness. Please, I don't want to die with that going on around. Yeah. Because then you're dying and you have to comfort all the other people. Yeah. And they should be the ones paying attention to you because you're the one dying. But you have to, you know, "Oh, it's okay. Don't worry about it." Yeah. So, you know, we need to think better about these situations. Yeah.
So just one question. Just now you talk about when the person in the final age of the old age, the best thing is to encourage them to do wholesome acts, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, I agree with that. But how do you know, when a person reach that age, the mental faculties is no longer the same. So how do you tell? Not even in dementia. It could be dementia and not dementia. So in those under those conditions, how do you tell the person to engage in wholesome?
Well, you try and help them before they get that old.
But what if they're already that age?
If they're already that age,
Yeah.
you can still, you know, talk to them about having a kind heart. One of my friends was telling me that his mother had very severe dementia, and lived in a facility for people with dementia. When he would go and bring her a gift, like some chocolate or candy or something, she would go and she'd take it and share it with all the other people in the ward who had dementia. And he said that was her character when she was alive. She shared, she was kind. So there it was, you know, even she, you know, was very confused. Still, that attitude of kindness and sharing was very much alive in her. You know, why? Because it was cultivated when she was younger. Uh-huh. But even so, you know, you can teach people some chanting. You can, when people are dying, you can encourage them to apologize to whoever they need to apologize to, thank whoever they want to thank, forgive whoever they need to forgive. Yeah, you encourage them in that way, and then that helps them, and they create virtue. Um, no, chanting is always good. These kinds of things, yeah. Have them in when they're dying in a peaceful place. Don't have a war movie on the TV in the same room, you know, where people are going, they're killing each other. That's not going to help somebody die. Yeah, keep it peaceful. Mhm. Okay. My dad had dementia, and sometimes he was quite clear, and other times he wasn't. And when he was so funny, well, it wasn't funny, but it was funny. Um, uh, he, you know, had a bank account in a bank that was very near where he lived, but the headquarters of that bank was on the other side of the country. So when he got the bank statements, my dad lived in Florida. The bank was, my dad lived in California. The bank headquarters was in Florida. So he would get the bank statements and he'd go, "I put the money in the bank here in California. Why is it in Florida now?" And we tried to explain, Dad, no, the money's still here in California. You can go to the bank and get it anytime you want. It's only the headquarters that sent you the statement. Your money is here. He did not believe us. Yeah. No, my sister especially tried and tried to say that. And then, at a certain point, what I found with my dad is I just, in some way, went along with what he was saying, or I changed the topic. Yeah. Oh, you're concerned about the bank here. Well, did you notice last time you went, they planted really pretty flowers in front? Yeah, wasn't that a nice thing to do? You changed the topic. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, don't argue with people who have dementia because you're going to lose. They can be quite stubborn. But of course, we're not stubborn at all. We're not stubborn, and everything we think is really true, right? Yeah? Yeah. But when somebody tells us something that contradicts what we think, why are you saying that to me? That's not true. Okay. So it's, when we meet people with dementia, it makes us reflect, well, how do I act? I don't have dementia now, but sometimes my behavior is just as stubborn as somebody with dementia, isn't it? Yeah. So, also another thing with people with dementia, I think sometimes they talk in symbols. There's been some research about this, that people talk in symbols. So one day my dad he was in the hospital. I can't remember for what. And I went in to see him, and he said, what do I need to travel from New York to London? Okay. Now, my dad lived in California. He had no plans to go to New York. I don't think he knew anybody in London. I don't know where this question was coming from, but I think he was thinking about taking a journey. Yeah. And that symbolized dying and being reborn. Yeah. So when he was saying, what do I take with me when I go from New York to London? Yeah, it may have sounded like he wanted me to tell him what to put in his suitcase. But what I said, because I was thinking, oh, he's talking in symbols about what does he take when he's dying. Yeah. And I said, Dad, the best thing you can take with you when you go from New York to London or wherever you go is a kind heart. Yeah, that's the best thing to take with you. And he said, oh, yeah, okay. And then I talked about having a kind heart. Whereas if I had said, Dad, you aren't going to London, you aren't in New York, and tried to contradict what he was saying, it would have been very difficult. It wouldn't have just created friction. As for myself, I'm sure I will be very stubborn when I'm old. Yeah. I just hope I don't get dementia too bad and that I remember some of the Dharma. And, but what I think about is I want to grow old gracefully. In other words, I don't want to be an older person who complains. Yeah. Who complains, who criticizes. So then I look, well, what are my habits right now? I like to complain. Yeah. If you ever need somebody to complain for you, just call me. I'm very good at complaining. Yeah. This is wrong, that's wrong, this should be improved, that should be improved. Yeah, you know me, I complain. So I think, when I am old, I'm going to depend, I will depend on other people for things that right now I can do for myself. But I want to be a kind person when I depend on those people and not scold them and not complain to them and not criticize them. So if I want to be like that as I'm older, then I need to start being like that now when I'm younger. And, stop whenever my mouth wants to complain. Yeah. Okay. So try and be more aware of what I'm saying now so that when I'm old, I don't carry that habit with me. Mhm.
Say something about the kind heart.
About the kind heart. The kind heart. It's the kind heart. You know what I think the kind heart is based on? It's based on seeing how the kindness of other people. Yeah. And to really look at how much our life depends on other people. Yeah. We usually think I'm an independent entity. I make my own decisions. I don't depend on anybody. Actually, we depend on a lot of people. Yeah. Today, our lunch depended on ABC, the family. It depended on all the people who cook the food. Who grew that food? Yeah, probably not people in Singapore. They only grow asphalt and concrete in Singapore. Yeah, I think the food probably came from another country. Yeah, who grew that food? Who worked in those fields? Who picked the fruit from the trees? Yeah, who transported it into Singapore? Who packaged it? When we look at just even today's lunch, so many people are responsible for us having lunch to eat, and we depend on them. And so they've been kind to us. Now, people are going to go, but they weren't kind to me. They did their work. They grew the food. They transported the food because they wanted to earn a living. Yeah, they didn't think of me and they want to be kind to me. That doesn't matter. They don't need to have the intention to cultivate us explicitly. The fact is that without them doing what they do, we wouldn't have food. Okay. Our clothes. Anybody here make their clothes? I don't think so. Anybody here grew the cotton? That much of our clothes are made from? No. What about the vehicles we rode in to get here? Anybody work in the mines to get the metal that made the cars or the buses or the MTR cars? Everything we have, everything we know, everything we use is depend on other people and in their kindness, because whether they do it for us or not doesn't matter. The fact is we benefit from their life energy. So when you really think about this repeatedly, and this is a meditation I do quite often, you realize, wow, everybody around me has been kind to me in one way or another. And then you begin to see yourself as the recipient of great kindness. When you see yourself as the recipient of the kindness of so many people, most of whom we don't even know, then automatically we want to be kind in return to whoever happens to be in front of us. And that's the kind heart.